All right. Welcome, welcome. I love these days of power coaching. I have with me today mindset coach and confidence coach, Robin Sachs. How are you?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm great now that we're just hanging out on a lovely Thursday afternoon. Cheers, friend. We were both sipping on are you doing
Okay.
tea or coffee over there? What are you
I
doing?
have tea today. I have green tea with jasmine, which is one of my favorites.
Trying to slowly switch over a little bit. Tea makes me happy and I kind of forget about it. It's yes.
Nice.
Yes. I am appreciating right now, it's just Robin and we might have some visitors jump on and we might not, but we thought we're going to take this moment, this opportunity and pocket of time to just do this focus, this narrow focus of a topic today of seasonal change. And because a lot of people are having that change of kids either just being off for the summertime, which can really throw us for a loop, of sending our kids off to college, Robin. No, I love that that was your reaction. Good job.
Right, thank you.
It was
Instead
excitement
of,
versus
"Ooh,"
uh-huh,
that'll be in a couple
tears.
months.
Okay, true, true. So there's and how important it is to recognize that this actually can like really affect our whole health journey, our anxious levels, our just our focus, all of it. So I'm going to throw the mic your direction and where your brain goes with shift of season and what you're kind of hoping and praying that our listeners hear out of this today.
Definitely. I always like to start with big picture and simple, right? Because that's the whole Occam's razor thing, right? Most of anything that we're going through in life or that we're working with, the simplest thing is often the answer, right, to anything. And
Mhm.
I like to keep things simple because it's so easy to, and I love to help people do that because it's so easy as human beings. It's so easy to get caught up in the chaos and in the tornado and in the storm and in everything because the moment we begin feeling nervous, anxious, stressed, overwhelmed, scared, worried, right? There's all these different feels. The feel as human beings, it tends to take over. And we need to get back to whether you want to call it the logic of the situation or just the facts of the situation. It's not about not feeling or pulling all your feelings out of it, but feelings and logic need to exist together. If one or the other is the only thing in the mix, you risk only getting half the story. And when you have half the story, you're probably not going to be able to come to whatever conclusion or decision or shift or change that you need to. And so when we talk about change, whether it's change of season, change of household, change of the kids are going off, they're home, they're not home, whatever that might be, there's a lot going on that has feels that come with it. And so I'll throw a couple of analogies in there, big picture as to how to look at those types of things. One, I like how you said change of season, Lindsay, because if you think about it, the change of season can look quite different. However, if we step back big picture and look at it from a simple standpoint, there are only four, and they happen the same way every single time. And so even though we might feel caught off guard, we actually know what it feels like, what's happening, why it's happening, and that it's going to look the same probably as it has in the past. And so
Mhm.
sometimes when we get worked up feel wise about something, one great way is to step back, look at it, and go, okay, I've been here before. I understand what's happening and I know why it's happening. And sometimes that right there, just sort of grounding yourself in that,
Mhm.
helps bring everything down a bit and keep you feeling a little bit more in control, a little bit less stressed, nervous, anxious, worried. Remind yourself, I know what's happening here. And that's an example of when the feel happens. If we don't ground ourselves in the logic, the feel can take over, right? And now we're completely out of control and it becomes pretty chaotic. And ground in the logic. So sometimes I know what's happening. I know what's going on. Yeah, spring is turning into summer. I expected it to rain a little bit. I expected it to be warm and cold. Now it's going to be hot and sunny more often than not, right? And I need to water the lawn sometimes, where I didn't all spring. We know what's happening and what we can shift. And it's not, I'll dare say, that big a deal when we bring the logic back in.
Mm.
One thing we can do to sort of ground. Another great way as things are shifting and changing, whether it's the seasons or whether it's in our lives in different capacities, when things are different, we tend to focus on the different. We tend to focus on what's changed. And because change can sometimes be scary, it can be uncertain. It could be maybe the first time we're dealing with something, right? That change, once we've dealt with something a couple of times, it's not as scary, right? Because I kind of know, I have some familiarity. But with change, we tend to get focused on the change. Uh-oh, what if? I don't know. Uncertainty. Oh, I don't like this uncomfortable feeling, all of those things. A great way to ground in moments of change is also to remind yourself of what's not changing. When there's change, there are always things that are staying the same. And the things that are staying the same, you do have familiarity with. They are more comfortable. You've been there, done that, right? They don't affect you as much feeling wise. They can ground you more logic wise. And so anytime you're experiencing change, yes, acknowledge that. Yes, look at what you need to do, what's shifting, sure, but balance that out with going back and saying, but here's what's the same today as it was yesterday or last week or last month or last year or last season. And,
Mhm.
these types of techniques are, it's really helpful to get them out of your head. Grab a pad of paper and a pen and brain dump. You can even put a line down the middle of the page and say, here is what's changing, and get that out of your head. Because in your head, it'll feel like 17 things are changing. When you put it on paper, you realize 2 things are changing. So that can allow you to not be as overwhelmed right there. And then the other side of the paper, you can put down, here are things that are staying exactly the same.
Mm.
And that list is always going to be so much longer than the what's changing list. And getting things out of your head and being able to see them allows your brain to go, oh, that felt a lot different than it looks. Oh, that felt so much more overwhelming than it actually is now that it's out of my head. In our heads, things expand and blow up and get a little more convoluted typically than they are, even when there's something big happening. It's a balloon. And once it's out here, it's really hard to slowly bring it down here. The best way to get this to be this again is you've got to dump it out of your head. It's kind of like if you have a bottle of water that's full, it's gonna stay full, right? You can't add more to it. You can't do, in order to be able to use that bottle for anything other than what it is, you've got to pour some out. You've got to, and then you make room. It's not as heavy, it's not as full. You can put more in it. Our brains sort of work the same way. And so, anytime you dump things out of your brain onto paper, it's like taking that water bottle and dumping some out. So you have some more space. That space allows you to do what you need to do, to think a little clearer, to maybe make decisions a little more doable, or to go, wait, I'm focusing on this, but it's okay. We can handle this, and be able to go back and ground yourself. And I know I've used this analogy, Lindsay, I think before, because I use it all the time. So I'm sure that I've mentioned it on one of our coaching calls. It's the analogy of the tree. You have a big tree and the wind is blowing really hard. And if you focus on the leaves, you're going to see constant movement, constant chaos. And if you focus there too long, you're going to get revved up. You're going to get riled up, right? What if a branch falls? What if it gets worse? Oh my goodness, that's a lot. What if it's a hurricane? And we can talk ourselves into a frenzy. But anytime you've got those leaves going like this, you've got to simply look down, and you will always see a very stable, very grounded, very anchored trunk that is not moving. even amidst the chaos, that's what's there. And so that's sort of what we're talking about is chaos is okay. The leaves are going to go like this in life sometimes. Over here is always the trunk, and make sure that you're looking at both when you need to shift, because both of them give you the ability to be present, to be able to do what you need to do, or to be able to say, I don't need to do anything right now. Everything is okay. And those are the places that you want to get yourself, because, when we talk about stuff like confidence and calm and all of those types of things, it all goes back to the exact same thing, which is, how do you learn to be in control of you, no matter what's going on, no matter what the situation, whether it's good, bad, whether it's severe, whether it's nothing? How do you keep getting yourself where you need to be mentally and physically so you can do what you need to do if you do? Or no, you can step away because it's okay right now.
Wow, that's so good. Don't leave this for a second because I want to take our listeners down some like specific examples because you're giving this like amazing broad view of it all. Like, and as we're talking seasonal changes, I know I threw out the example of, let's say our kids are exiting the school scene, right? And all of a sudden we're in summer. I'll kind of give you one of my examples and then how you would be coaching through that. But I feel like there's this every year in the past, there's always been this kind of panic leading up to summer because it's always like, oh, are the clients going to get done? And where am I going to find the free time to like make sure the workouts keep happening? And there's this buildup of, and all of a sudden it was interesting because this year I didn't feel that. And I'm wondering if it's to your point, I've been here 4 years, I've done this. Like, hopefully there's some learning through that's going on. But again, like, if we even just stay the mom path and exactly what you were just talking about, staying grounded, like what would you be telling me to look at that's the trunk versus the trees?
Yeah. So here's one thing. Let's go broad and then come back down using this example.
Okay.
So one of the things that we often do, right? We're advised, coached, it's suggested, we're always told, get consistent, get in a routine, right? Get in this thing where you can just be in that mode. That's the best way to be able to fit it all in, right? What I always like to counter that with is maybe every day of my life or every day of my year doesn't look the same routine wise. I might have a summer routine. Maybe I have a while the kids are in school routine. Maybe I have if I work in an industry where, like an accountant, right? Accountants have a few very busy days
Mm.
or months of the year. And then they have kind of lighter months of the year, right? So you might be your landscapers, you might be in different modes with whatever you do, where your clientele load changes, or your the need for you to be somewhere changes, or is it family a little bigger now than work, and then that changes, because a lot of times we're looking for this life work balance. And the word balance is sometimes misleading, because we feel that we need to give everything to everything equally. And no, I don't want it balanced. Sometimes work's going to get a little more attention, and I am going to step away from some personal things. Sometimes personal takes over, and I'm going to put my work over here for a moment. Sometimes they're going to look like this. But so one thought is, especially when you're looking at something like from the mom standpoint, right? Mom slash business owner slash household, all that kind of stuff. There can be different routines. So sometimes there's when the kids are in school routine, and sometimes there's a summer routine or when they're out of school. And those look different, but they're equally my comfort routines. What happens then is we change our expectations for ourselves. And that's a big deal, because we often have very high expectations for ourselves, which is great. You've got to have some good high expectations to accomplish anything, or at least try to do your best, right? However, sometimes we have unrealistic expectations. And if we don't change our routine or our expectations as situations change, we risk really being a little hard on ourselves when we don't need to be, because it's unnecessary. And so part of this is, maybe somebody's changing from my kids are in school routine to my kids are out of school routine. Why are we expecting that to look the same?
Mm.
What does that look like differently? And give yourself permission to go, yes, this is my summer routine. And in the summer, I get up a little earlier if I want to do my little exercise, or I take the kids to the park now and I walk around the playground to get my exercise instead of going out on my 3-mile walk in the morning like I did when they were in school. What stays the same but looks a little different? Right? And maybe if this pumps up a little bit, maybe I do say, well, this is naturally going to come down a little for a couple of months, and that's okay. So how does it look different? How does it look the same? And give yourself permission to know that looking different is okay. Not following this routine doesn't mean I'm failing with this routine. It means I'm smart enough to go, this is what the routine looks like for the next 2.5 months. And it still is going to encompass the things that I want to keep over here. They're just going to look a little different. And that's okay. If I don't, instead of walking a mile, an hour a day, I'm going to walk a half hour a day. You know what? That's phenomenal. That's really what you need. That extra half hour isn't, I hate to tell us, making that big a difference in our life for the next couple of months. That the 20 minutes of walking that all the research tells us, if that's what we're going by, allows you to get the health benefits you need. Or maybe my hour looks like 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, 10 minutes here, and I still have the same hour. So think outside of the box. How can everything stay the same that you want to, but look a little different? It also keeps us a little kind of more involved and engaged, and it's fun. It's not the same thing every day where I'm just checking boxes. So I don't know if that answers or if I
Oh,
kind of
100%. Yes, it's wonderful. And I'm just loving circling around this because as you're talking too, I'm picturing, I keep saying, that some of this change and to your point can cause overwhelm or a little stress or whatever. But there's also, I just got off the phone with one of my teacher clients this morning who just came on to summer break and now actually has time for herself. So like utilizing this new given time and not having guilt that you do have the time, which I think is like an interesting shift too. When all of a sudden, we ask for time and then it's provided, and we're like, am I really allowed to be giving this time and energy into self and to health? That all of your tips are circling around. It can be good, it can be stressful, and it all works to look at what's changing and what's staying the same. Thank you. That's really good.
and I love what you just said too, that whole perspective of, all of a sudden my kids are now a part of what do we do for the summer. That's the same time when the other person, the teachers, for example, have their time to do what they need to do because they're with your kids the rest of the year, right? So,
Yeah.
and I love that you brought that up, Lindsay, because just as a little side note, is that whole perspective thing. A lot of times we're so focused on us and what our perceived challenges are. And I say perceive because sometimes challenges are real. Sometimes they're kind of created. They're self-created. No judgment, just awareness. We do that. That's how our brains work, right? We're focused on us more than anybody else, good or bad, or right or wrong. And to be able to get that focus back outward sometimes and goes, wow, what do I do with the kids all summer? And shifting that, not that that's what we're doing, but shifting that to, oh my goodness, here are some things I get to do with my kids this summer, right? Maybe you sit down and make a little list, right? It's a weird thing that humans do a lot of the time. And this is one of the biggest reasons that we get as stressed and overwhelmed as we tend to do is everything seems like there's something we have to do. There's a chore. This is an added thing to my plate, even when they're wonderful things, right? It's like, I got to figure this out now. And then I got to figure this out. We're allowed to sit back and go, hey, we have the ability or opportunity now to do some things. What are some things we'd like to do this summer? Wow. Why don't we find a day on the calendar where we go to the zoo? We keep talking about that. Why don't we find a day where we just go to the playground? And I'll walk around the playground while you guys hang out and play. Why don't we have a day where there's this? You're allowed to schedule things because they're cool, fun things to do instead of always thinking about, oh my goodness, my schedule. How am I going to fit my kids now into the schedule for the summer? Not again that that's what we are doing, but sometimes it can feel that way. It's an added thing on top of what we're doing. And that creates some pressure, anxiety, stress, overwhelm. If we look at those things and go, cool, maybe next year we decide that starting at, January 1st, we all start contributing to a list that's on the fridge of, in the summer, here are some things we'd like to do.
Mhm.
And then you don't have to think. It's like, okay, once summer hits, we already have our little list of things. Let's just take this and put it on a day. Let's take this and put it at this time. So, you know, being proactive also a little bit, or thinking, knowing, it goes back to that, we know, again, we're using this example, summer comes up and the kids are home now for 2.5 months or 3 months, right? Whatever it might be. We know that's coming every single year, right? We're allowed to prepare a little differently for that, instead of it hits and we're like, oh no, now we got another thing on the plate. So those little shifts in perspective, think about that stuff, know that it's there, it's coming, and look for the opportunity, knowing that yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes some more energy, but at the same time, I knew that was, it's like, and I'm just going to say this, right? I always say no judgment, just awareness. There's a little judgment, right? People who every year wait till the last minute at the holidays to go get everyone's gifts. You know what? You know it's coming. You know it's going to be there. Even if you wait till the last minute, which we all do sometimes, that's okay, but don't tell everybody about it. Because at some point, people are going to go, okay, enough with the drama. I don't care. You knew this was coming literally for 12 months. If you're waiting until the last minute, go do it. Don't talk about it all the time. Don't talk about it as, oh my goodness, I have to do this. It's a burden. It's something I didn't have time. 12 months, you didn't have time. Right? It's funny when somebody else does it and you're like, really? You're
Yeah.
creating a bunch of stress for yourself. When we do it, it feels so true and real. When we watch someone else do it, it's like, why are you always being so dramatic about this stuff? It's that perspective is a big deal. So you can also watch how other people do things and observe. And sometimes you see people handling things in a certain way and you're like, oh my goodness, that was so cool. And then that's something, now let me try that. That's really nice. Or do I do that? So observing helps us learn a lot too. We don't have to figure it all out on our own. Watch
Mhm.
other people and see what's working, what's not from your
Citizens Bank,
outside.
this Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I don't know if that was for us. Hi,
Okay, hang
Jennifer.
on. Your phone's going in and out. Who am I speaking with? Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm gonna mute
I think Jennifer's on a call. That's
her. I think
okay.
so too.
I'm glad she
That's
joined
all
us.
right. We'll
But,
mute.
but
Um,
yeah, so some ideas. Don't always try and think I got to figure this all out on my own. Go get some ideas by watching what other people do, and then you can pick and choose things that do work for you.
right. No, I really like that we can do that in the fitness world. Like I think that a lot of times we do this comparison game instead of just observing, where we're very quick to see somebody else do something well and we're automatically saying to ourselves, well, I don't do it like that. Like, why does that not come easy to me? Why does that, instead of, I love the way that you're positioning this. It's okay, they're making that look easy for some reason. So they must have some routine in place, some habit in place that allows them to show up to that walk or to show up to that class. And what can I take away from that observation, that I'm not maybe giving myself credit or time, or I don't know. I think if we could strip the comparison is what keeps coming out of my mind. And that's way easier said than done, that we have so many role models around us, right? From
Right. If you want to compare yourself, again, there's the old adage, right? The only thing to ever compare yourself to, the only person, is you from any previous version of you, right? You
yeah,
from
yeah.
yesterday, last year, last whatever, you know, um, to your point, easier said than done. Um, but that's something also that's a habit, because it's a skill that can be learned. The more you tell yourself, oh, I can't do that, look at them, everyone does this better. First of all, you're incorrect, right? Again, that we've talked about Bob, that voice in our head is lying to us constantly. Everyone doesn't do that. Everyone doesn't do it better than you. Everyone doesn't do it well. You're not the only one who can't do it, right? That's that story in your head that it's a complete lie. But it's our default. It's often where we go for various reasons. But the more that you tell yourself, why would I expect me to do it? They've been doing it for 5 years. Why would I expect me to look like that today? Right? Again, it's that, the expectation that's completely unrealistic is often what we're comparing to. And if you start to compare to actual real life, what that factually looks like, if I've been doing this for 5 years and you've been doing it for 6 months, please don't compare these two things. If you've been doing it 5 years and I've been doing it 5 years, that's more of a good comparison. What are you doing differently? What am I doing differently? If you're not comparing the same thing, it's like anyone who watches the Olympics, figure skating looks incredibly simple because the only time you ever watch it is people who are fluid. And if you then go put a pair of skates on and you literally can't stand up for 3 seconds, that's not a good comparison.
Yeah,
That's
that's so good.
that, right? Why? And again, that voice in our head is so ridiculous. It is so unrealistic. It is just lying. And so that's not the place to compare,
Yeah.
right?
I feel like, not to interrupt you, but I don't want to leave that
Yeah.
sentence that you just said. Like, the place I see that comparison with the ice skating is in the kitchen. You know, when somebody grows up meal prepping because that's what their family did, or they grew up very comfortable in the kitchen, then yeah, they make meal prep, they make grocery shopping, they make all of that look pretty easy because it's just so innate. And then to the person who didn't grow up in that scenario, nor do they like being in the kitchen, and they're going, why can't I throw a meal together and put it on the table? Because there's an art to it, there's a practice level to it. So the ice skating was just such a good visual that's what we're doing, people. If you hear Robin and I talking today, like, that's what we're doing from a training for an event standpoint. If somebody makes running look easy, if somebody makes lifting, just walking into the gym and no problem, because they've been entering those doors for probably years and years and years, if not, I feel like, wow, great example, and interesting if we can all shift our brain over to it's just practice.
Right. And what's the old saying? I don't know who to attribute it to. Every expert was once a beginner. Every person who does something super well that you watch was exactly where you are at some point, and they looked exactly like you did, and they felt exactly like you did. The only reason they don't look like that anymore, or maybe feel like that, or that they show up very differently in that, is because they've done it the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. They've continued, or 6 months. They've started to do something consistently. And when you do things consistently, you get better at them. That's it. It's that simple. Every time when we first all got into a car for our first driving lesson, or driving with somebody, right? We were probably scared to death and so hesitant. And once you start driving, it's not a big deal, right? Unfortunately, you don't even think about it sometimes. You just you're going, right? But not that I'm advocating that, but that's it's so second nature. Again, you watch a baby go from crawling to walking. They try and stand up and fall down 100 times. The baby never says to themselves, well, forget it. This walking thing obviously isn't something I can do. Everybody else can, but I suck at this. I'm just going to crawl the rest of my life. They don't even think about that. They go, I want to walk. So I'm just going to keep getting up and falling down until I don't fall down anymore. And then once you walk, you don't think about it anymore, right? Until something interferes with that ability again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of everyone listening, most of your life, everything you do now that you don't even think about,
Yeah.
you didn't do well at some point. Now you don't even think about it. And know that every single thing is a skill. And if you simply want to get better at it, you need to be really bad at something to get better at it. There's no other way to do it. And so embrace being bad at something, embrace not getting it right. And just look at that always as, what am I going to learn from this? What do I need to do differently next time? Wow, it's just familiar now. I'm not as scared or worried. So now I can just go do it. And all of a sudden you get better quickly. All of that comes into play. Don't get stuck on step one. right? And that's the thing. Once you get to step 2, things become so much easier. It's so easy to get stuck on step 1. So don't worry about step 17 and 24 and 30. I want you to get to step 2. That's it. And then, wow, can things start to really happen and take off and feel different.
Oh, it's so good. I feel like I want to just hit the like summary button for us today as we're for anyone who's kind of just jumping on or listening. The point of today was to bring up transitions and that a lot of us from spring to summer go through huge transitions. And that as we do that, I love Robin's. We can get overwhelmed and we all look towards the things that ultimately we feel like are changing. And the reality is there's a lot that's staying the same. We can ground ourselves. So Robin, just kind of go through if you had bullet points from what we talked about today, what would be those quick bullet points of I hope that this was heard so that maybe you could take this nugget and go out and implement it today.
So here's the big picture takeaway. And even think of the words that we use, right? We get riled up. We get revved up. We get worked up. We settle down. We calm down. When we're moving and feeling like we're going up, our breath goes up, our shoulders go up, everything goes up, our blood pressure goes up, our anxiety goes up, our stress goes up. When you're feeling that, start to become aware of that. And once we're aware, I want you to shift and think, how can I get back down? What are the things I can do? Is it taking a couple of breaths? Because that's what we would tell someone else if they were getting revved up. Take a couple of deep breaths, right? We would help settle them. If you're realizing you're looking at the branches blowing, come down. Notice the branches and the leaves are up here. They're up. The trunk is down. Find ways for you. And it doesn't matter what anybody else's way is. There's no comparison here. There are a handful of ways to get here. Pick the one that works for you. Don't worry what works for me or for Lindsay or for anybody else. What works to ground you? You can think of the word ground, come down. You can think of the word calm. You can think of the word anchor. I want you to think of a word. What is it that gets you where you need to be so that you're stable again and can do what you need to do? That's it. So think of your word. Use that as a mantra. When you feel this, I want you to say to yourself, whatever it is, ground. Get grounded. See the trunk, anchor, right? Feel the roots under your feet, pulling you to the ground, whatever that might be. And take a couple of breaths and notice how quickly you can actually bring yourself down when you're going up. This is where we have control. Once we're too high up here, we have no control. We're out of control. Coming down is where we have control. That's why we call it stress management, not stress elimination. You don't have to get rid of the stress. This isn't a black or white thing. This is a stay in this range thing. So find your word. Find the thing that makes you feel grounded, centered, anchored, whatever you want to call it, and begin to practice that immediately. Don't wait till the time when your stress level's up here. I want you to practice every day. And a great way to do it is we have these things right next to us all the time. Right now, go in and set a notification on your phone that just pops up like every hour or so throughout the day, or whatever time frame works for you, but make it consistent, for example, hourly. And all it does, because as soon as something pops up on our phone, we all go, so you're going to see it. And just have your word, ground, breathe, anchor, settle, whatever it is, so that your brain sees that word over and over and over and over. It's teaching your brain that muscle memory, because what gets repeated gets remembered. What gets repeated gets implemented. What gets repeated gets believed and trusted. And so it's almost like having a coach outside of your head reminding you. Because let me tell you, things like mindfulness are incredibly simple. They are. The hard part is reminding yourself to do those things. So have something to remind you, and you'll build that skill before you know it.
Yeah, that's so good. I know the reminders, and you, for anyone who hasn't figured this out, you can actually like put words to your reminders. So I have one that says you care. Just to
Mhm.
remind, because I think that our brain really in the moment is like, doesn't matter. Does it matter if I brain dump right now? Does it matter if I ground or say the word ground? Or we are so good at backing ourselves out of healthy, good habits. And so sometimes when you're in that stronger state of mind, we have to like put the words in front of us to remind our future self, like, you do care in the moment, or you do need to practice this. And this is why this keeps dinging on your phone. That we have to have like some faith in the process before the results come. And I think that's hard, but
And
worthwhile.
and and just like the seasons, nobody
Mhm.
has to tell nature what to do. It
Yeah.
just does what it does. So just let go and let things happen. So rarely do we need to step into it and try and change it or manage it, just like nature. Let everything do its job and happen. And if you need to step in, step in. Rarely do we need to step in. Remind yourself of that, and it'll help in that grounding, anchoring, calming process.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for all of your wisdom around this topic today. It's comfy, like you're my grounding at the moment. I can like feel my stress go down as you talk, and you're right. And all the like, there's like happy silver linings that come out of everything. And what I've witnessed, and maybe this is why I'm calmer this summer, is that what I've noticed is there's always way more time and pockets of time that when we just look at it as just summer, it feels like it's all busy. And it's like, oh, there's beautiful time that gets opened up in the summer for everything. So I don't know. Thank you for your reminders. Is there anything that you would like to end on? Anything fun that you're doing that you'd like to shout out, or where's the best place for our listeners to find you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, nothing in particular. All is well, which is good. So,
Yes.
yeah, you know what? LinkedIn is always a great place. I do share a lot of little tips, articles, little videos, things like that about how to be less stressed and more confident in all different areas of life. And so feel free, follow me there, connect there. If there's a reason to do so, you can always find me there. And then on my website, robinjsachs.com, you can find a bunch of articles, videos, a blog, a lot of free stuff that, again, can help reinforce a lot of these things that we always talk about.
Right. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. And for everyone's knowledge, you can find Robin and I on YouTube as well. On my station, Direction, Not Perfection, I steal Robin a lot. So
And I go
we've got lots of,
willingly.
yeah, willingly. Yes. Appreciate that. And I actually have been having a little bit of fun with series with my podcast, and we're about to dive into, we have an ADHD series that we are kicking off this Friday and getting some interviewed guests from dietitians to therapists. And then we also have like physical therapy series and emotional eating. So if you are ever wanting a topic, you can just go in a direction, not perfection, and pull out your topic of choice there. But Robin and I do this once a month together. So if you ever have a question, a burning question, message one of us and we'll make sure to get it answered. And that will be it for today. Thank you. Anybody who's still on here, stay on though, because I'm going to just say goodbye here.